Hey everyone, welcome to the Tavern. Doing a special episode today because of the Christmas season. My brother and I are going to talk about some of our favorite Christmas movies. Hopefully they're some of your favorites, and if you need recommendations for this next couple of days or next year or whenever, here are some of our personal favorites and our thoughts on them. So I think we'll just begin with the one that always seems to cause controversy for no reason, and I'm fairly certain it is, for both of us, it is our favorite Christmas movie, Die Hard.
Oh, yeah, easily. I
Now,
feel like Die Hard's a lot of people's favorite Christmas movie.
because it has everything you want. You have the whole point of, getting the family back together. You get some awesome action, some great music,
Fun one-liners.
and one of the most memorable villains in cinema.
Yep. I think the main issue people have with Die Hard being classified as a Christmas movie is that it's not super Christmassy. You have the Christmas music at the beginning and the end, and the Christmas party at the beginning, but other than that, there's nothing really Christmas.
I will counterpoint on that. One, the background music actually uses an aggressive, evil version of Ode to Joy when you get the introduction of the terrorists. There's also a scary version of other, holiday jingles that are played during some of the more... Christmas music is integrated into the background music.
You just don't notice it.
It is very subtle, but it's there. Of course, you have the classic, now I have a machine gun, ho, 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 ho. So, that's there. You still see Christmas trees and Christmas decorations around. I think most of the people go against it because of the action. That they're like, well, this isn't, your traditional kind of thing. And I'm like, well, Christmas isn't a genre. Christmas is a setting. It's a time period.
It's a time.
So I feel like you could do any genre. You could do a sci-fi, alien invasion movie and place it around Christmas. But if you put enough Christmas stuff there, you get something really...
too, sleigh bells.
Yeah, I was going to say. You can get good movies, though, as well. It's not...
You could also make good movies.
And I believe we have some horror entries on this list that we're talking about.
I was going to say, an excellent slasher film, one of the first slasher films, and an inspiration for John Carpenter's Halloween, the Canadian 1974 film Black Christmas, a cult classic horror film. Guess when it takes place? Christmas.
Yeah.
It's 100% a Christmas movie. Got great suspense in there.
It has a nice creepy twist to it that is kind of nice. It adds a little extra flavor to what you have going on in the story.
And just the historical aspects of it being one of the first true slasher films, where it's not a giallo, it's a proper slasher.
Yes, wherein it's not the masked killer, it's just a psychopath.
Yep.
I have difficulty calling this a Christmas movie because almost none of it is Christmas, but I'm going to have to bring it up since we're just talking slashers. Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. I quite enjoyed this movie.
It's very fun. Everyone knows Garbage Day.
Mm-hmm.
Garbage Day. Great little meme.
Yep.
It's a very, very silly movie.
You still get the Santa Claus outfit killer. Not only the sequences from the first movie that they reused, but also the sequences...
You mean most of the first movie that they reused?
Yeah, most of the first movie they reused. And then you have the parts of when the new killer puts on the Santa suit for the very last sequence. But there's some fun kills in that one. There's some great, silly dialogue.
Which just makes it better.
Yeah. And then, of course, because I believe it takes place in California, there's just no snow or anything like that.
Yeah, because California doesn't have... Well, parts of California have snow, but not where they were filming.
And if you want a holiday slasher that's more cheese and less, gore, then you could always go for that one if you want.
Or if you want a holiday horror movie that is very cheese, Gremlins.
That one is very tongue-in-cheek, and it almost goes on the point of horror comedy.
Oh, it is 100% a horror comedy.
But it has some moments, man. It
does have moments.
But I guess you could say something about Evil Dead 2, where you're like, well, it's a horror comedy, but man,
it's a horror comedy.
There's some moments. And yeah, the creepiness factor is great in that movie, but the silliness is great, especially as the gremlins just go around wrecking the entire town. And
yes,
you get usage of Christmassy stuff going on. And
you do.
And even Gizmo himself is a present. So it all ties together. But it's a fun one. It's right there on my credenza, right next to my TV, right there, waiting to be watched.
It should be watched every Christmas.
So moving into comedy, I want to, of course, talk about the classic that everyone loves.
National Lampoon's
Christmas Vacation. I love this movie. I saw this when I was really small and saw it for many, many years. Then I went a chunk of my life without watching it, and I forgot how good it was. And I was dating this gal, and she had never seen it, so I decided, okay, I'll show it to you. And I watched it again, and I'm like, oh my God. Even the little subtle jokes, the little things happening in the background. I'm like, you could get this just... Not only is it Christmassy as all else, but it also just has so many levels of humor. You have just straight up, just jokes. You got background stuff. You got just the weirdness of the family and how they're all so eccentric and bizarre, and there's so much going on. And then you got, of course, your crazy gags, like turning on the lights and having like the blinding everybody with it and things like that, or the squirrel in the tree and things like that. I'm glad to see an older comedy that still holds up as a comedy, because it's not held back by, oh, well, you need to know this reference to Ronald Reagan or something. You're like, no.
Which a lot of comedies have that fault.
Yes, they do. And I like watching something that just makes me bust up, because it's just timeless. It's just
funny.
Yeah, this is just your crazy family getting together and what's the craziest stuff that could possibly happen. And that's kind of how the vacation movies originally worked, is just, this is your family trying to do stuff, and this is the craziness that could occur to the nth degree, because obviously I don't think many people have had their house lights blind people or drain the power grid.
Well, yeah, but that's what makes it so funny.
Yeah, the absurdity makes it great. And continuing in the comedy category, of course, there's one I would be remiss not to bring up, which is Home Alone.
Gotta have Home Alone. It's a holiday classic for a reason.
Yeah, this was one of those movies for a long time was I have to watch it every Christmas. I think the older I got, the more I started to see Kevin McAllister as like Saw Zero.
Well, because he is. He's Proto-Saw.
He's gonna grow up to be Jigsaw. It's what I'm trying to say here. Just has Marv in wakes up in a room and just Kevin McAllister. Would you like to play a game? Especially two all the traps are like.
One goes from, okay, some of these are outlandish, but mostly believable. Two, he's just trying to kill them.
I like aspects of two. I remember seeing that in theaters when I was really little, and there's aspects of two I like. I like the fact that for the majority of the movie, it is not redoing the same thing, because you gave him a new setting.
There are aspects where it does redo the same thing, but it does it differently.
Yes. But I like the idea of him, being in a completely new location and then showing that self-reliance that Kevin gained in the first movie, as showing as how a kid would normally be freaked the hell out about being trapped in New York, and instead is just kind of living it up and having a good time. Then, you have the toy store and him making the bond of the toy store owner to then find out that's what, the sticky bandits in that one are going to go rob. And I like the fact that you have that kind of thing where you're just like, okay, see, and he has a connection to this guy, and that's why he wants to help him. Although chucking a brick through the window, probably not the best way to help a toy store.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. That's the best way.
Could have just called the cops while they were robbing it.
No. You need to add destruction.
There had been payphones at the time, I believe, and they don't require money to dial 911. So you could just dial that and said, "There's two guys who just broke into the."
Then you lose out on the joy of throwing a brick through a window.
And then luring the two criminals
into your Saw-esque death trap.
Yes.
They have to be electrocuted and have bricks thrown at their heads.
Oh god! And then the freaking toolbox thing just crushing them, and it's just like, yeah.
Yes, he was trying to kill them.
No, yeah. Part one just has like simple stuff. Oh, you put the micro machines on the floor and they slipped on them. Although that nail through the foot is still.
The nail through the foot and the blowtorch on the head are the two extremes.
Yes, and then the paint cans. I'm like, yeah, this is all like traps that like a kid could throw together for random stuff.
For broken
ornaments. Yeah, or icing the stairs. Also pretty good. You know, one thing I never understood in that movie, I know they had to do it to establish that it was a technique he was going to use to freak out the criminals, is where the pizza guy is coming by and he uses the clip from Angels of Dirty Souls. And I'm like, but why? Just go.
Because he wanted free pizza.
No, he pays for it because he does keep the change, you filthy animal, and he gives them the money through like the mail slot or whatever. And I'm like, your average pizza guy isn't going to give a crap.
I think he's just a psychopath.
Yeah, I freaked out the pizza guy for no reason. But all you had to do was open the door and go, okay, my mom gave me the money, and you hand him the money and you take the pizza, and the guy doesn't care if he doesn't.
Yeah, but that's not as funny.
No, it's not as funny, but it's like logically.
Speaking of not as funny as Home Alone, I feel like I have to bring this up because, much like Denny, it's an American classic. Tim Allen's The Santa Claus.
I quite enjoy that movie to a point that I remember having times with my dad where it was just everyone else was gone. And it was like, Christmas Eve or the 23rd. And we'd see a Denny's, go like, we just got into town. What should we eat? We just see a Denny's, like, oh, it's an American tradition.
American tradition. That's the line. Thank you.
Yes. And having done that and then regretting it in the morning.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's Denny's. Yeah, it is the place of regret.
But yes, I do have a love for that movie. I remember I've watched it, God, on Christmas so many times at this point.
So have I.
The sequels I've rarely ever seen. I think I've seen 2, and I know
the sequels just aren't as good.
Yeah, they aren't. And doesn't need a sequel. Like, we get it. Doesn't. He's now Santa Claus. High fives all around.
And he does Santa Claus adventures.
Yeah, so it's in that category for me where I know I've seen 2 at one point, and then 3, never seen.
You've seen 3, you just don't remember it.
That might be the case. I may have just blocked it. But yeah, especially if you want just like a more simple family film. I mean, obviously the Santa Claus movies works really well. You don't have
It's
to.
one of the most family films in this discussion.
It is, alongside Home Alone.
And I guess that means we need to go into our next family film.
And that brings us to Nightmare Before Christmas, one of my favorites. I was actually the one to introduce my family to this movie because no one cared about the stop motion kind of thing. And I was like, no, this looks really cool. It's Tim Burton. It's stop motion. This looks great. I had a period in my life where I didn't like this as much because of an ex. There are a lot of ladies out there who love Nightmare Before Christmas. I dated one of them for a very short period of time, and it just kind of soured me on the movie. It took a few years, and then I got back into it. I was like, man, I love this. Like, a bad relationship cannot ruin this good movie.
You love it almost as much as Tim Burton loves Christmas.
Yep, he has used Christmas in quite a few of his movies.
Yes, he does.
That I don't know if I would count one of them as a Christmas movie, but I'm still...
What are you talking about? Batman Returns is totally a Christmas movie.
I love the fact that you knew exactly what I was talking about. We'll finish Nightmare Before Christmas before we get into Batman Returns, but one of my favorite part in the Kingdom Hearts games, 1 and 2 specifically, is playing the Halloween Town levels. I love going through those. The only one that was kind of annoying is Chain of Memories version. The Chain of Memories version is a bit more annoying just because, especially in the HD remix, fighting Oogie Boogie is just a pain. But in the regular, fighting Oogie Boogie was actually kind of fun, the GBA version. But yeah, those missions always filled me with joy. When I did a replay through of Kingdom Hearts not too long ago, I was just so happy to do those worlds. Yeah, and then yes, of course, Tim Burton has 2 other movies that are majorly tied, at least have major Christmas segments. And the first one, of course, is Batman Returns. Not sure I'd consider this a Christmas movie, as it really has.
It is not a Christmas movie. It's a
has
Batman
one
movie that takes place
that
during
ties
Christmas.
into Christmas, the pageant queen or whatever.
Yeah.
But I am not going to consider that a Christmas movie, but it's still a fun just footnote to bring up. But the one I might consider is Edward Scissorhands. Because
I'd say Edward Scissorhands leans more towards Christmas.
Yeah, because this
Batman
was the major
does.
motif, and the angels and things like that. There's a lot there.
There is.
Normally something I would think of, but I think if you want a wintry movie, it's a good wintry movie.
It is a very good wintry movie. But there's a lot of movies that are good wintry movies.
Yep.
If you want a Christmas movie that isn't necessarily good, but is very enjoyable, why not turn to the Austrian classic, Jingle All the Way?
Excuse me, that's the prequel to Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
No, that's Star Wars: The Holiday Special.
But yeah, we should have brought this in our family discussion, but whatever. Jingle All the Way it is not a good movie. We're not going to
No, it's not.
Say it's a good movie.
It is not a good movie in any way, shape, or form.
But is enjoyable cheese and gets us into our cheesy category.
Especially if you like Arnold.
Especially if you like Arnold. Arnold is very much goofy Arnold in this, and he does a great job. And thankfully, it's one of those movies that acknowledges that he's like really buff.
Yeah.
Because a lot of his comedy things never bring that up. And like, it's one of the ways that Phil Hartman insults him in the movie. He's like, "You can't solve this by lifting weights, buddy." Stuff like that. And it's like, that's great. Also, I love Phil Hartman as like evil Ned Flanders.
Yes.
I never thought of like Phil Hartman playing a bad guy, but man, he is such a sleaze in this movie. I think the most memorable part for me is the crazy bootlegger Santa Clauses.
That is definitely a great part. But how can you possibly like forget the very end with Turbo Man?
Oh, I like the Turbo Man sequence, especially the weirdness where like whatever little stunt spectacular they were supposed to do just gets completely out of hand, including just random like whatever the stuntmen are just going after to try to attack Arnold like full on. Like,
well, yeah, I mean
think
that's how that works.
I love
then like halfway through the movie, Sinbad becomes a villain because this Christmas movie needed a villain.
Because they're both fighting over the toy, and they're both the 2 people who go the extremist for the toy.
Extreme ways to fight over the toy.
And I love the fact that like the constant joke is, well, we got the tiger, we have Booster.
Yep.
Everyone like no one wants that. I'm like, you know what though? But if every kid has a Turbo Man, you're gonna want at least the one kid who has the sidekick, so that you can team up with your friend.
Or you'd want both Turbo Man and the sidekick, so you can have them fight side by side.
Yeah. And I want to point that back in the day, I was the kid who had the Shredder toy. So everyone had to play with me because I had Shredder. I had a turtle and I had some other stuff, but I had several of the villain characters because A, I just thought they were cooler, and B, it forces the other kids to play because everyone's getting around there. If they're Leonardo's and they're Michelangelo's and they're Raphael's, everyone had Raphael. He was the coolest.
Well, I mean, yeah.
But you need someone for them to fight, and then suddenly I'm bringing out my guys for them to fight. So
yeah, because you have the Shredders.
Yeah.
The Foot Clan.
The little things you do as a kid, like no one ever thinks about that. You're always like, oh, you have 2 types of kids. You got the kids who want the villain character and the kids who want the hero character. And I think I was almost always leaning towards the villain character with a lot of the toys I was into, which I don't know what that says about child me.
I feel like that says a lot.
Yeah.
So, since we're related, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Never
And I will not expand beyond that. Speaking of villain characters,
Oh,
we do need to bring up a Christmas and holiday classic, regardless of what form you enjoy, whether it be the book or one of the 15 million film adaptations, from the Muppets to Bill Murray comedies, A Christmas
A
Carol.
Christmas Carol. We almost synced it. Yeah, there's so many versions of the Christmas Carol, and they're all wonderful.
Yes, each in their own unique way.
I'm gonna say my two favorites are Muppet Christmas Carol and Mickey's Christmas Carol. I just quite enjoy those, even though Mickey's Christmas Carol not actually a movie. It's like 20 minutes long.
Not. It's like several different shorts.
No, it's one short, but it's usually sold as a collection of shorts.
It's sold as a collection of shorts.
The specific short itself is only like
the short
20,
itself is
25
only
minutes.
like, yeah. But I always saw it on TV as like the Mickey Mouse Holiday Collection.
Yeah, but they play
so
all.
I always view it as part of the shorts collection. But no, I absolutely love Scrooge McDuck playing Scrooge. It's great.
Yeah, and then of course Muppets is great just because you got the Muppets humor mixed in with just some really spot on acting from the human characters.
Yes.
It follows the original short story incredibly well, including all the little things that usually get cut out. So that's nice. And then of course, if you want to go to a alternate take on the adaptation, of course there's Scrooged.
Scrooged.
Everyone loves. And by the way, underrated part of that is that opening with the action Christmas movie, The Day the Reindeer Died.
Yes. I want that to become a real film.
I wish they had actually just gone and made that like just afterwards. Like, and we're making this too. This over the top 80s action man defends Santa Claus, and the closest thing we'll ever get is Red One, which is sad.
So what are you talking about? That's not a real movie. That was something you made up in your sleep.
This is true.
After watching too many Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movies.
Yep, and then drinking some eggnog.
Yes, bad eggnog. I mean, there's one movie that we have to mention because we just have to talk about it. It's not good. It's not enjoyable. Well, I mean, it's kind of enjoyable, but but George Lucas once said if he had the time and a hammer, he would destroy every single copy of it.
I would not normally count this, but it is movie length technically, and that's the Star Wars holiday special.
It is the holiday special. Technically a Thanksgiving film, but most people watch it during Christmas.
Yes, because that's how most of us were told about it. That it was a Christmas special. It's technically the holiday special. It could be any holiday, and in the case of the movie, it's Life Day, and it's done like one of those weird variety show things. Here's the segment.
It is a weird variety show
with this singer, and here's the segment with Jefferson Starship, and here's the segment with B. Arthur, and here's the wacky cook alien robot thing, and
here's wacky robots tech supports.
And the Boba Fett cartoon, which Boba Fett's barely in, actually.
Yeah. And I believe it's also the first instance Boba Fett was ever shown on screen.
Yes, it is. And, of course, the part that everyone always complains about is that opening where you get about 15 minutes of just Wookiees doing Wookiee stuff.
Well, yeah, but how else are we going to establish what Wookiees do?
Just all grunting at each other, and you got to kind of go and say, okay, I think this is what's going on.
It's not good, but it has become a tradition for us.
Yeah, as soon as I got my copy, which no one has a legal copy until they eventually release that. Although, according to a thing I heard, and I don't know if this is true, Carrie Fisher, when she was going to go and do the sequels, said, "I will do these, but I also want a proper, clean copy of the holiday special."
That fills me with joy. I hope it's true.
I hope it's true too. But we know that as long as George Lucas is alive, there will never be a legal release version of that.
I mean, there can be. He doesn't own Star Wars anymore, but Disney are too much of cowards to do it.
I think he's putting some weird stipulations in there.
But it's also entirely possible.
They do make Life Day merch for Disneyland. What's it called? Batuu.
Star Wars Adventure.
They do have Life Day merch they bring out around Christmas. Because I remember seeing some of that where they have the little Wookiee in the red robes. That's great. There's like 10 people that know what this is.
Yes. No, there's way more than 10. There's 10 people that go to Disneyland that know what that is.
I'm shocked it's never been picked up for me as a Christmas present, though I am glad that it has not.
Well, guess what I'm getting you for Christmas this year?
So one of the things that's become a tradition for us, and we watched the Mystery Science Theater versions of these.
That's how we got introduced.
Is Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, and then I think it's just called...
It's just called Santa Claus, but it's colloquially known as Mexican Santa Claus, or Santa Claus versus the Devil.
So Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is generally a fairly bad movie, and if not for the Mystery Science Theater guys, I don't think it's sit-throughable.
Oh, no, definitely not. It'd be pain.
It's an interesting-ish concept of Martians don't have a Santa Claus, so we're going to kidnap Santa Claus. But then
they do nothing with it.
Yeah, and then the movie ends, and the dopey alien becomes Santa Claus.
Becomes Martian Santa Claus.
Drugs! ! But then we have Mexican Santa Claus, which is just
one of the most insane movies starring Santa Claus ever made.
Yes, it just needs to be seen because whatever we explain is you're going to think we're just lying.
Because he lives in a sky castle with Merlin.
And then he has children from around the world who are like essentially his helpers. So instead of
elves, he has slave
children.
Racial stereotype slave children.
Oh, that's true. Yes, they're also all racial stereotypes. And fairly offensive ones, too.
Incredibly offensive ones.
And then you have Santa Claus comes to Earth and then gets trapped on Earth because the devil is like making children not good.
Yes, because that's what the devil does.
That's what the devil does. And then he needs to like get back to his castle.
He needs to get back to the sky castle within 24 hours. Otherwise, he will die because Santa Claus cannot eat human food. He can only eat sky food because he lives in a sky castle.
As, as part of the Santa Claus myth that we all know.
Part of the Santa Claus mythos.
It is so bizarre and weird. There's unnecessary amounts of fog. Go find it. The episode is on YouTube. It is bizarre.
Insane.
You don't even need the Mystery Science Theater guys in order to enjoy the insanity of Mexican Santa Claus. It is so strange. And the fact that it got dubbed in English and brought to America is like, wait, what?
It's amazing. It is absolutely insane and amazing. And speaking of Christmas movies with an absolutely absurd and insane plot, I have to mention Elves. I have to. We can't not.
Yep, and it goes in the cheesy category because this is cheesy. It's horror.
It's supposed to be. It's not. It's hilarious.
I'll see what I can describe here without getting busted by YouTube. But essentially, bad man from Germany scientists wanted to mate humans with little troll monsters
in order to create the master race.
Yeah, as you do.
As you do. And so, Dan Haggerty is a mole Santa detective guy who has to fight these.
Yes.
Well,
and he may or may not be incredibly drunk during the movie.
Despite the fact that it's called Elves, there's only one elf, probably because they only had the one puppet.
That's more than likely, yes. And it is very Christmas-oriented, strangely enough.
It is.
But, only recommended for those who need a bizarre movie to watch.
Very bizarre. Hilariously bizarre, but very bizarre.
Which is why it's in the cheesy movie segment. Which I love that, we tried to have everything segmented and then we just jumped around too much.
And we just jumped around. And we're just continually jumping around because that's just how it works. I don't know where to go from Elves.
Yeah, I know. That one really throws us off. I think that fills most of our holiday traditions, honestly, at this point. It does. So there you go. I hope I've introduced you to some new movies, especially in the cheesy movie and horror movie categories, because while I do love a lot of the TV specials, and we could have done a whole video
we could have done a whole long video on the TV specials.
I just thought talking about some of the weirder Christmas movies that we're into, and some mundane ones, obviously, like the family ones that we have. But I felt this would be a fun way of kind of sharing some of our family film movie traditions with all of you out there.
Yes, these are Star Wars Holiday Specials, definitely a film for the whole family.
Yes, and a tradition that I started a while ago. When I had a nice digital copy instead of the VHS tape that's copied from 17 other VHS tapes.
That's just how it is.
It's just how it is. So yeah, it was always kind of a thing for my family where we just watch a bunch of movies, usually on Christmas after we do presents and stuff. It's just movie
or Christmas
marathon.
Eve, we'll doing Christmas cookies.
And that too. So, from my family to your family, I hope you have a Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
And until next time, I'll see you
at the tavern.